Good day, everyone. I am Liza Gyangan, and I am going to introduce to you patterns in diagram. And we will going to focus on two patterns, namely Rosette pattern and Frieze pattern. But before we are going to proceed to our main discussion, let me tell you the importance of Rosette pattern and Frieze pattern. So Rosette pattern and Frieze pattern are the patterns that found in various artistic and mathematical contexts. These pattern exhibits symmetry, repetition, aesthetic appeal, which make them important in exploration and analysis. Now, going to our first pattern, let's focus on Rosette pattern. So, Rosette pattern first appeared on the 4th millennium of BC Egypt. So, it is ancient. It exists in early times. And also it appeared in Minoan Crete. So, when we talk about Rosette pattern, it refers to or it showcases radial symmetry. When we talk about radial, it means that there is a center point and all of its lines goes outward. Another reference or another definition of Rosette pattern is its identical elements radiate outward in a circular or spiral arrangement. So it doesn't have straight lines. It has curved or circular spiral arrangement. Now, Rosette pattern has two types of symmetry. The first one is cyclic symmetry. So, cyclic symmetry, it showcases that its rotation symmetry exhibits around a center point but no mirror line. Let's take note of that. Cyclic symmetry has no mirror lines. The next one is dihedral symmetry. So dihedral symmetry refers to that its rotation symmetry is on or around a center point with mirror lines. Let's compare the two. The first one, the cyclic, has no mirror lines, but the dihedral has mirror lines. Now, let's proceed to our second pattern. We are going to discuss the Frieze pattern. So Frieze, the history of Frieze pattern is on the history itself. So we can find Frieze pattern in the history, ancient times, same as the Rosette pattern. It first appeared commonly on Greek temples, Roman temples, Indian temples, arts, crafts, and even poetry. The frieze patterns are common on those cultures. So when we talk about frieze patterns, it refers to linear symmetrical designs that repeat along a straight line. So going back to our first pattern, Rosette pattern is circular or spiral, while the frieze pattern is linear. What do you mean by linear? Linear means line, okay? Straight line. So when we talk about straight line, there is two types of straight line that we know, right? It showcase identical elements shift horizontally or vertically. Horizontally means ganyan. Vertically. So, frieze pattern is a linear symmetrical design. Compared to the Rosette pattern, it is focused on radial symmetry. Frieze pattern, linear symmetry. Rosette pattern, radial symmetry. Now, going back to frieze pattern is a combination of different symmetry. I am going to show you four symmetry that are more common on this patterns combination. So the first one is mirror symmetry. The second is glide symmetry. The third one is rotational symmetry and translational symmetry. I am not going to discuss it further because we are focused on Frieze pattern and Rosette's patterns introduction. So these four are the few examples of the few combinations that exist in Frieze pattern. I am going to show you some examples of each pattern, 15 in total, 8 for Rosette and 7 for Frieze pattern, to hopefully further understand its concept. So now, let's proceed to showcasing some of the examples of Rosette pattern. So, the first example is commonly found in nature. That's why mathematics is all over the places in the world, all over the world. So, the first example is called the sunflower seed arrangement. So, as you can see, the sunflowers has seeds, and its seeds arrangement exhibits Rosette pattern. So, why it is under the example of Rosette pattern? Because it has a center point, a distinct center point, where all of its circular or spiral patterns starts. Okay, from here, then it radiates outwards, outwards, outwards. Here is a more emphasized illustration. It is a distinct pattern where all of its seeds or all of its identical elements or identical curve, circular or spiral patterns or lines goes outward, radiates outward. This sunflower seed arrangement exhibits or showcase the radial symmetry, which is the definition of Rosette pattern. So the second example that we have in here that I will provide to you is the mandala pattern. So mandala pattern exhibits a circular arrangement where, yes, it is a flower, but its pattern is arranged in a specific circular arrangement. So it has a distinct center point where all of its identical patterns or identical lines starts with, and then it radiates outward. So when I say Rosette pattern, it doesn't mean that the lines should be curved or in a circular form, as long as it emphasizes or exhibits a circular arrangement, then we can consider that it belongs to the Rosette pattern. So the next example that we have in here is called the rose glass tinted window. It is commonly found in churches, cathedrals, most commonly in a Roman Catholic or devoted Roman Catholic nations, just like Spain, Vatican City. Okay, so why does it belong to the Rosette pattern? It belongs because all of its element radiates outward and it showcases radial symmetry. What do I mean by radial? When you say about radial, it's like going outwards. It radiates. No? Okay? So when you observe it, it has a center point, and then all of its elements radiates outward. In here, this one has a straight line pattern, but it radiates outward. It goes outward. So we can say that Rosette pattern doesn't require that the lines must be in curved or circle. As long as the lines exhibit or radiates in a circular or spiral arrangement, then it is under the Rosette pattern. Here is the example, and next Let's move on to our fourth example. It is one of the examples, its drawings or its output is one of the examples of Rosette pattern. So it is the spirographs drawings. As you can see, here it is. Why does it belong to the Rosette pattern? Because it has a center point. Then all of its identical elements radiates outward, goes outward in a circular form or arrangement. As you can see in here. So the next one that we have in here is, it is also found in nature. It is one of the examples of Fibonacci sequence, just like the sunflower seed arrangement that also exhibits Fibonacci, or one of the example of Fibonacci sequence that commonly found in nature. Then this one is also showcasing the Rosette pattern and at the same time the Fibonacci sequence. So it is the pine cone scale arrangement or pattern. So as you can see, these patterns, so the pine cone scale arrangement exhibits a radial symmetry. Okay, it has this center point and all of its elements radiates outwards. As you can see in here, the center goes outward, it goes outward. So the next example that we have is the golden medallion decor. So the golden medallion decor is a decoration for aesthetic appeals that is put in the ceiling. And that part is where you put your chandelier in there. It is more commonly found in Western cultures and Americans' ceilings for like decors. Okay, so why this thing belongs to the Rosette pattern? Because its pattern radiates outwards in a circular or spiral arrangement. We are just basically repeating those words because it has this common thing. All of the examples that we are showcasing right now has this distinct appearance that when you observe it, oh, it's radiating outwards in a circular or spiral arrangement. Next one that we have in here is also commonly found in nature. It is the snowflakes. So fun fact, snowflakes are unique. Snowflakes pattern, each pattern of snowflakes are unique. So if each pattern of each snowflake has this distinct or unique patterns, and therefore each snowflake is a Rosette pattern. Imagine millions and millions of snowflakes, and therefore millions of Rosette pattern. So why do snowflakes belong in a Rosette pattern? Because, as you can see, and as I have said earlier, that the patterns of the snowflakes is radiating outwards. So the last example that we have is the azuhello tiles. So azuhello tiles is commonly found in Portuguese and Spanish households or crafts. So these tiles exhibits radial symmetry. It has a center point and it radiates outward. It exhibits radial symmetry, just like the in here. So as I have said earlier, that Rosette pattern doesn't always mean that the line should be in a curve or circle or spiral form. As long as the pattern exhibits a circular or spiral arrangement, then we can consider that it is a Rosette pattern. So what have you observed from the examples that I have given to you? the Rosette examples that I have given to you, it has this distinct appearance that when you see it, oh, it looks like radiating outwards. It looks like a Rosette pattern. It has this common appearance in them that that when at first look, when you do the first look, then you can say that, oh, these group these pictures illustrate Rosette patterns. So let us remember that Rosette patterns exhibits radial symmetry, radiates all its identical elements outward in a circular or spiral arrangement. So the next pattern that we are going to discuss and showcase examples is the Frieze pattern. So Frieze pattern, going back to the discussion, we describe it or we refer to it as the linear symmetry. Okay? So Frieze pattern, linear symmetry, horizontal or vertical arrangement. So I'm going to show you some of the examples of Frieze pattern. So the first pattern that we have is the Greek key mold or Frieze pattern. Because why does it belong to this? Because it exhibits linear symmetry. It has this arrangement of lines in a horizontal or vertical form. As you can see in here, this is a drawing of the mold. So the next example that we have is the chevron Frieze pattern. This pattern is commonly found in our blankets, rugs, placemats, and this is one of the example of Frieze pattern. So as you can see, this has this distinct observation. It has this distinct pattern that when we see it, we can call it a Frieze pattern because it exhibits linear symmetry. It has this slanted or diagonal lines. The next example that we have is the rose or the floral border in Art of Nouveau. Here it is. Although it doesn't have that plenty of lines, but when we look at it, we can see linear symmetry. We can see lines. We can see horizontal and vertically arrangement of lines. So when we say about Frieze pattern, it doesn't always means that the lines should be in a straight. All of the patterns should be in straight or slanted or horizontal or vertical lines. It can have these combinations, okay, of symmetries or arts. The next one that we have is the geometric tessellations. So the geometric tessellations exhibits Frieze pattern. Why? Because it exhibits linear symmetry. It exhibits slanted, horizontal, and vertical arrangement of lines. Yes, here it is. The next example that we have, it is called the wave pattern. Although, as I have said earlier, that the Frieze pattern doesn't always mean that the lines should be in a slanted, horizontal, or vertical lines. The pattern, the mismong pattern, must show vertical or horizontal arrangement, just like this. For the second to the last example, we have the Mayan hieroglyphs. The hieroglyphs are symbols, earlier writings of Mayans that are arranged in a linear fashion. So, although there are carvings or face-like carvings in this photo, but the whole object was arranged in a vertical and horizontal arrangement, which exactly points out to our Frieze pattern. So the next one is we have the wood carvings in Hindu temples. So these carvings emphasizes the linear repeatedly patterns in horizontal or vertical arrangement, although it has these curved patterns or curved shapes or curved lines, but the arrangement of it goes under with frieze pattern because it is arranged in a horizontal or vertical form. So as you have noticed, in our all examples of frieze pattern, there are common distinct features that when we see it, oh, this illustration belongs to frieze pattern. So that's it for this video. Hope it was informative and it was helpful and easy to understand. And hope you understand the two patterns that I have given to you. And that's all. So thank you for listening. And again, I am Glyza Gyangan and see you around.